Hi, welcome to RT classes CA Guru. Happy Vinayak Chauthi to everybody. Today we are going to discuss about chapter number 1, unit number 2, basic economic problems. So according to the request of my students, I am posting this video. Please watch the video till last, and if you like the video, like it, share and subscribe. So let us go into the topic. So basically economics talks about scarcity of resources. Unit number 2 is completely related to the scarcity of resources and how this scarcity of resources makes the economies to face the problem and what the economies do to solve this problem. So that is what we are going to learn under this unit number 2. So what is the basic economic problem in any country? That is scarcity of resources. Is every country self-sufficient? No, right? So no country is self-sufficient. Every country has a problem. That is, some resources are more and some resources are less. So how this problem can be solved? Let us see some of the basic points that we have to learn before going into the problem. So all countries without exceptions face the problem of scarcity because their resources are limited and these resources have alternative uses. As we have discussed in the first unit, every resource have an alternative use. So because of that alternative use, what we will face some kind of problem that what use we have to use it, means for what activity. For example, if you take milk, it has different alternatives. So for what we have to use it? Every day we'll have a problem. Every day we will face some problem. Same like that, resources, all resources are having different problems. So when we see they have different alternatives, we doesn't know for what we have to use it. That is also a problem. And the resources which have alternative uses and are also limited. We cannot use them more and more. They are very limited. We have to use them very carefully. That is the first point. If the resources are unlimited, people would be able to satisfy all their wants and there would be no economic problem, right? So, but what is the economic problem? The problem is scarcity. Here they are pointing that if there is no scarcity, there is no problem. But we are going to learn about the basic economic problem. So alternatively, if a resource have only a single use, then also the economic problem would not arise. So if there is no alternatives also, only one option will be there. So we will directly use for that. But here we have alternatives for what we have to use it. Definitely there will be a question mark for it. Because of that, we are again facing some problems. So the central economic problem is divided into 4 basic economic problems. What is that? So we are going to see the 4 questions that we put on the economy to face this problem. What is that? The central economic problem, what to produce, right? So we have resources which are very limited. With that limited resources, what we have to produce, right? Next, for whom we have to produce, for what, for whom, who uses those resources, for whom we have to produce them, and how to produce them, what. So basing on the availability of resources, what is the method or procedure that we have to use to produce those goods, and what provisions are to be made for economic growth. As we all know that the resources are scarce, but how we have to use them for the economic growth. So what provisions? Generally at home also what we will do? We will save money for your future. Why are you saving for your future? For your family growth. So in the same way, every country also should make some provisions to develop the country. So what to produce? So the resources are limited. With those limited resources, what we have to produce, that is the problem. And we have so many people living in the country for whom we are going to produce them, and there are different methods to produce them. What method we are going to, means techniques, or we are going to use. So if we get us answer for this questions, that means we are able to solve the, means not 100%, but we are able to solve the central economic problem. So as we have discussed in the class also, so one of the example that I will be using is, so there is wheat available in the market. So there is wheat available in the market, and in that country 80% people are poor people and 20% people are rich people. Now, according to us, who needs wheat more? 80% people, and they consume that wheat in the form of atta. Whereas 20% people are rich people, they consume this wheat in the form of cookies, right? So, what to produce? Economy should decide what to produce, whether it will produce atta or whether it will produce cookies, and for whom they are producing, whether they are producing for 80% people or whether they are producing for 20% people. How to produce? Basing on the availability of resources, that is whether labor is available more and it is cheap, then they will go with labor intensive methods, and if capital is cheaper in their country, then they will go with capital intensive methods. And already I told you what provisions are to be made. As we all know, the resources are limited, they have to be used very carefully. If we use them completely in the present, we cannot use it for the future. So make some provisions for the economic growth of the country. That is what we have to do. So basing on this economic problem, we are going to see just some small points I have written, just go through them. What to produce? Society has to decide which goods and services should be produced. As I told you in the example, whether they will produce wheat or whether they will produce cookies. Every society has also to decide in what quantities each of these goods would be produced, 80% or 20%. Next, how to produce? The society has to decide the method of production, that is whether to use labor intensive techniques or capital intensive techniques. As I told you, if labor is cheaper, they will go with labor intensive. If capital is cheaper, they will go with capital intensive techniques. Second point, obviously the choice would be depending on the availability of different factors of production, that is labor or capital, and their relative prices, whichever is cheaper. Next, for whom to produce? Society has to decide how the goods should be distributed among the members of the society. So whether they have to distribute them to 80% people or whether they have to distribute them to 20% people, they have to, basing on the requirements of the society, the country has to decide. In other words, it has to decide about the share of the different people in the nation. So I told you, the share of the people, 80% is poor and 20% is rich. The share, basing on the share of the people, they will decide and they will produce whatever they require. Next, what provisions are to be made for economic growth? So as I told you, we have to make provisions. Provisions means we have to save or invest. So a society has to decide how much savings and investment, that is how much sacrifice of current consumption. Present, if we reduce our consumption, then only we can move for the future, right? So the economic growth depends on the future. If you preserve now, you can use it for the future. That will help you to grow more faster. So otherwise it would become static. So present, if you are completely using them, what about future? There is no answer. So that's why always maintain a provision for the future and lead to decline in standards of living. So if you don't think about the future, definitely there will be a fall in the standards of the living of people. So always maintain provisions for the economic growth. That is how we solve the central economic problem. So basing on the central economic problem and the availability of resources, economies are divided into two basically, and these two combination is the third one. So that is capitalist economy, socialist economy and mixed economy. Now let us see quick revision of these capitalist, socialist and mixed economies. Capitalist economy, mostly present present world, we have USA, UK, Singapore. These countries are developed countries and they are the capitalist economies. So let us see what are the characteristics of a capitalist economy. Generally, how will be a capitalist economy is, capitalist economy is like a free market. So it is also called as free market economy or laissez-faire economy. So you can just see that the economy gives freedom, the country gives freedom to the people. There will be no central monitoring authority who will restrict them completely, but there will be some restricted frameworks. So within that they can freely work. So as a parent, what in our house also, generally parents what they'll do, they'll put you completely in restrictions or they will give you some freedom and they will put some restrictions, limited restrictions. So like that only the country also, every country also works. That country mechanism is called as economy. In every economy there will be capitalist economy, socialist economy. So if we have both features of a capitalist economy and a socialist economy, then it is called as a mixed economy. So capitalist economy is completely free market economy. Private people, mostly private people will be leading the economy. See how it will be. Right to private property. So in capitalist economy, anybody can buy a property, anybody can start a business. There are no restrictions on what they wanted to buy or what they wanted to start. So that is the first point, right to private property, freedom of enterprise. Any business they can start. There are no restrictions on what business you are doing, why are you doing these kind of businesses. There are no restrictions because there is no central monitoring authority. Freedom of economic choice. Even consumers also will have the freedom to choose what they wanted to buy, because private people mostly concentrate on consumers' needs. So what they require, they'll produce them only and they will give them. So because they'll get more profits. Whatever they produce for the consumers, they'll buy it. So when they buy it, definitely they'll have some profits because of that good. So freedom of economic choice is available for consumers. Freedom of enterprise is available for producers. So private property, anybody can own a property. I'll just tell you one simple example and make you to understand how capitalist economy and socialist economy works. So there are two families, Raviteja family and Rajashekar family, right? So in Raviteja family, there are 4 kids. 2 kids are well educated and 2 kids are not well educated. Same in Rajashekar family also. 2 kids are well educated and 2 kids are not well educated, right? So Raviteja said, I have 100 acres of land. Whoever is capable of buying that 100 acres of land can buy that land. And same with Rajashekar also. What he said is, I also have 100 acres of land, but all 4 of you are my kids, so I'll distribute them equally. 4 of the kids got 25 acres, 25 acres and 25 acres each. But in case of Raviteja, only 2 people who were educated, they have money, and the other 2 people do not have money. So what these 2 people did is, they got, each of them got 50 acres and 50 acres, and the other 2 are working under these 2 people. So this is the situation where you can see Raviteja is monitoring their family in the form of a capitalist economy. Means people who are capable will be given opportunity. Whereas in a socialist economy, nobody is given more importance or less importance. Everybody is given equal importance. That is a socialist economy. So now you can understand easily what is a capitalist economy and a socialist economy. So if you observe now, right to private property. In our example, so they got their property. So they wanted to start their businesses. They can start freely. And economic choice. So consumers can buy whatever they want basing on the producer. What the consumer requires, producer also produces the same. And in case of a capitalist economy, mostly it will be led by the private sector. So private sector generally will have a profit motive. They'll work for profit only. They do not do any kind of public services. So that is profit motive in case of capitalist economy. And consumer sovereignty, as I told you, consumer requirements are first fulfilled by the private sector. That's why sovereignty means giving more importance. So here consumer sovereignty is, consumer is the king. He makes the decision. Basing on his decision, whatever he requires, that will be produced. So heavy competition also will be there, because more number of people start their business and they compete one-on-one to give whatever the consumer requires. So heavy competition will be there in a capitalist economy. And as I told you, there will be absence of government interference. Government will not interfere in any kind of activities in a capitalist economy. These are the characteristics of a capitalist economy. Coming to the merits of a capitalist economy, there is no need of central monitoring unit. So no government or no central authority is going to come and question you, why are you doing this, what are you doing this. So there is no kind of questioning in case of capitalist economy. There is no need of central monitoring a unit, because private people only make their own decisions. Next, coming to second point, driving force of profit motive results in greater efficiency. Because they are working for profit, they'll try to reduce the cost and they will concentrate more on making profits. That will make them to have a greater efficiency, right? So they'll work effectively and efficiently and they'll make more profits. That will make them to run their businesses. So capitalist economy grows faster also because of this. Economic growth is faster because they work for making profit. They do not waste time. They definitely focus on their growth only, and by making lesser cost and more profits, that will lead them to faster growth. And resources are used in activities in which they are most productive, resulting in optimum allocation. Optimum allocation means maximum allocation. Whatever resources they are available with, they will use them to the maximum and they will produce the goods. So resources, whatever resources, either it is labor or raw material, whatever they are having, they will use them to the maximum and they'll try to produce the goods. Optimum allocation of resources will be seen in case of capitalist economy. That is a positive or merit in a capitalist economy. Cost of production, as I told you, because they are concentrating more on profits, they have to reduce the cost. If the cost is more, they'll not get profits, right? So they'll reduce the cost of production and they'll minimize the cost of production to make more profits. So it offers incentives for efficient economic decision. So people who are making proper decisions like starting a business, putting their efforts, what they are getting profits. People who are working hard, they are getting something in return. So that it is offering some incentives for people who are effectively working and putting their efforts to grow themselves. They are getting incentives in the form of profits or income. Next, consumers are benefited because of competition. What happens when there is more competition? There will be more sellers. The consumers will have more options, and when competition is more, the price will get reduced. So these kind of simple small benefits are, they'll have benefits for the customers. So consumers are benefited because of competition. Next, growth of business talents, innovation, development of research, etc. is faster. Why? Because if they have to sustain in the market, they have to bring out new talents, new thoughts. Even if you see in the market, generally if you see in the market like food courts, they are bringing up new food ideas. So why they are bringing those new food ideas? Because if they give something new to the customer only, the customer will sustain with them and they can grow faster. So business talents are required, innovation in their goods have to be there, and development of research, etc. is faster in a capitalist economy because they have to sustain in the market by competing with large number of sellers, right? And next, capitalism preserves fundamental rights. Fundamental rights means right to private property, right to make economic choice. These all will come under fundamental rights. Already we have seen some of the points in previous slide, if you see. So these points are related to basic fundamental rights. So capitalism preserves them, they'll maintain those fundamental reserves. It functions in a democratic framework. As I told you, there will be freedom within some limitations, they can enjoy themselves. So that is, it functions in a democratic framework. If you see, your parents have given you freedom and they'll put some restrictions. They give you freedom, but they'll put you some restrictions. That means you have to play within this area, or you should not go outside this outside this area. That means they are putting some framework for you, but within that framework you can do whatever you want. That is a democratic framework. Freedom with little restrictions. This is the merit. These are the merits of a capitalist economy, right? Now let us see the demerits of a capitalist economy. First point, decedence of property rights over human rights. If you observe in a capitalist economy, what they are giving more priority for the properties, for wealth, but not for human rights. Are they giving importance to human rights? So Mr. Raviteja did not consider the other two kids, but he has given importance to only two people who are capable. So that means there is no human right, there is only wealth, right? Next, inequality and social injustice. You can see that clearly. No, we have no equality between all the people in the country, and social injustice means some of them are given more importance and some of them are given less importance. That is injustice only. So that is second point. Whereas third point, wide difference in economic opportunities. In our example also, who got the opportunity? Only two people got the opportunity, and the other two did not get the opportunity to get that because they said that you are not capable. So wide difference is there in economic opportunity. And fourth point, does not represent the real needs of the society. One example I will tell you. As I told you, 80% of the people need atta and 20% of the people need cookies. A private economy, a private company, generally what does it think? If I produce atta, I'll get a penny of profit. But when I produce cookies, I'll get a maximum amount of profit. So generally what private sector will do? They'll produce cookies. So is that the real need of the society? No. Actually, the society requires atta, but private sector mostly concentrate on the products which they get more profits. So it does not represent the real needs of the society. Fifth point, exploitation of labor. Even if you see in private companies in India also, private companies, what they'll do? they'll try to make the people work more for them. So overtimes, so they'll try to exploit the labor and get more work with minimum payment. So that is called as exploitation of labor in private sector. Mostly lot of work will be made to be done by limited number of people. Okay, so that is exploitation of labor, and there will be more pressure on them to work hard, give more returns. So that will be called as exploitation of labor. You can see more in a capitalist economy. Whereas in consumer sovereignty is a myth. Myth means just an assumption that consumers are treated as kings. So it is not basically a merit to the capitalist economy, but it is a demerit to the capitalist economy. It is not actually, consumers are not given much importance. Only private sector concentrates on profit maximization, not on consumer requirements. Misallocation of resources. So in our example, if you see wheat and atta and cookies, so what actually the resources are to be used for? It has to be used for making atta, but it has been used for making cookies. So that means there is a misallocation of resources, right? So it has to be allocated to make atta, but it has been allocated to make cookies. So that is misallocation of resources. Less of merit goods means which makes the society to grow, they will not be produced. So if you see cigarettes and alcohol, they'll give more profits because they are habits. People cannot leave their habits much. So private sectors mostly concentrate on these kind of goods which are addictive. So that means, are they merit goods? No, they are demerit goods. They are not good for the society. Is there any central monitoring authority to monitor these kind of goods? No. So because of that, what will happen? Less merit goods will be produced. So unplanned production. Is there any monitoring authority to plan what to be produced? No. So everything will be decided by the private sector. They will not plan according to the requirements of the society. So they do not consider about the society. They completely rely on getting more profits and growing faster. Next, waste of productive resources. So which are required by the society, they are not produced. So when they are not produced, if you see all the competitors in the market, if they produce cookies and if they are not producing atta, what will happen? So only 20% of the people are there to buy those cookies. So what about the other 80% people? Now what will happen? The produced cookies will be wasted. They will not be bought by the other 80%. So wastage of productive resources have been seen in a capitalist economy. That is a demerit because the resources will be misutilized and unnecessarily more goods will be produced where it is not required. That is waste of productive resources. And 11th point, formation of monopolies. Monopolies will be leading the economy. So these private people will become one, and they will try to command the economy. They'll form into one group and they'll become a monopoly in the market and they will exploit the consumers. That is a demerit for a capitalist economy. And the last point is environmental degradation. The resources are wasted, misutilized, misallocated. These all leads to environmental degradation, means spoiling of environment. These all are demerits in a capitalist economy. Now what all we have seen? Capitalist economy, features, merits and demerits. So now did you understand what is a capitalist economy? Now let us go into socialist economy. Socialist economy is the economy where we have more rules and regulations. Everything will be monitored by the central monitoring authority. We are going to see how the socialist economy will be running as a characteristics of a socialist economy we are going to see. So this is a country, North Korea, which follows a socialist economy. So in a socialist economy, the first point is collective ownership. In our example, what I told you, Mr. Raviteja and Mr. Rajshekhar. So Rajshekhar has given his 100 acres of land to all 4 kids, right? That means all the 4 people are owners of the land, right? So that is collective ownership. Nobody is given more importance or nobody is given like less importance. Even in a country also, everybody will be given more collective ownership. Everybody is treated equally and they are the owners of the country, owners of the properties that they have. And next, economic planning. Who will do economic planning in a socialist economy? Central planning authority, that is government. So planning will be done and everything will be according to the plan of the central monitoring authority. And absence of economic choice. Consumers cannot demand what they want. Whatever is required by the majority of the people, what they require, that is only produced. So 80% of the people requires atta, means the central planning authority will plan and they'll produce whatever majority of the consumers require. So there is no choice of other 20% to choose what they wanted to buy. So whatever is produced, that they have to be consumed. So absence of economic choice. Relatively equal income distribution. Everybody will be given equal importance. So people who are earning more will be taxed and that tax will be distributed to the people who are not capable. So that is relatively equal income distribution. And minimum role of price mechanism. So price in a socialist economy is determined by the central planning authority, that is called as administered prices. So minimum role of price mechanism or market forces. Market forces means demand and supply. So here there is no demand, no supply, because everything is planned by the central monitoring authority. They will not consider what is the demand for the product and how much we have to supply. So whatever is 100% of the people, they will concentrate, and whatever is required by the society, basic needs of the society, they will give them and they will go according to the requirements of the society only. So minimum role of price mechanism is there. And next, absence of competition. There is no private sector, only public sector is there. Only government will be producing everything. Everybody will be there will be no private sector, so there will be no competition. Absence of competition, right? Next, let us see what are the merits of a socialist economy. First point, economic and social justice. Everybody is treated equally. In our example, as we have said, all the 4 people got 25 acres and everybody is given justice. Economic and social justice happens in case of a socialist economy. Whereas second point, rapid and balanced economic development. In capitalist economy, what we have seen only rapid growth, but in a socialist economy you can see a rapid growth, means faster growth, and even they will have a balanced economic development, because everybody, no poor no rich, everything is balanced, right? So rapid and balanced economic development you can see, and priority will be given for welfare of the people, not for the wealth. Only people will be given importance, more importance for welfare of the people, but not for the wealth of the economy. Growth will be balanced, no rich no poor. Third point, better utilization of resources of waste of all kinds are avoided. So the resources whatever are available in our example, another example that I told you, wheat, atta and cookies. So here the resources are utilized mostly for producing atta and they avoid the wastage of making cookies. So this is a better utilization of resources in case of a socialist economy. So better utilization of resources can be seen in a socialist economy because they will be planning what is required by the economy and they will avoid the wastage of resources. Unemployment is minimum because they will try to give employment opportunities to the public. So government tries to generate employment opportunities to the public, and business fluctuations are eliminated because there are no more competitors. So there will be no fluctuations in case of a business. Only public sector is going to produce the goods. So if there is requirement, they'll produce, otherwise they'll not produce. So there is no case of fluctuations in a business, right? Next, coming to fifth point, people work with cooperative mentality. Why people work with cooperative mentality? Because even if a rich person who is capable is working more and more also, will he get more money? No, even if he earns more money, what will happen? The government will take that excess money and distribute it to the poor. So people work with cooperative mentality because there is no difference in rich or poor. There is no difference between capable or incapable, right? Standard of living. So balanced standard of living will be maintained in a socialist economy. Everybody will have that minimum standard of living. Means basic necessities they can earn. They can have their basic necessities by earning from doing some work which is provided by the government, or by, if they are capable, they can get their own jobs and they can earn. Everybody will have a standard of living, balanced standard of living. No exploitation of labor. If you see, if we take an example of a private company and a public company, you can observe that government organizations and private organizations, private companies will be expecting more and more from the labor. So they'll pressurize the labor and they will make the labor to work more and more. Whereas in a government organization, if you see, people will be leisurely sitting and slowly doing their work. So that is a benefit for a socialist economy. There will be no exploitation of labor, there will be no pressure on them. So that is very good for the socialist economy. That is a merit. And next and the last one is social security. There is no problem that I will not have basic food, because if I am not capable also, government will support me, or central monitoring authority will support me to have some basic needs. So more, if I want more than that, I have to work more. So that means social security is there for me, which will help me to grow. So that is a merit for a socialist economy, right? So these are the basic merits of a socialist economy. Coming to the demerits of a socialist economy. What are the demerits, means negatives in a socialist economy? The first one is predominance of bureaucracy, which leads to inefficiency and corruption. Bureaucracy means strict rules and regulations. A bureaucratic country will have more rules and regulations that their people should not do this, and they are restricted from doing some activities. So if you see in a socialist economy, bureaucratic rules will be more, and that leads to inefficiency, means people will not have that courage or interest in doing something more and earning more. Because of that, what they'll do, they'll not put their efforts and they'll try to get easy money in the form of corruption. So that is the first demerit in a socialist economy. Second point, restricts the freedom of individuals. Can they make their own decisions? No. Even producers cannot start any new businesses, or consumers do not have their freedom to choose what they wanted to buy, right? So there are restrictions on the freedom of individuals. And third point, if you see, doesn't provide necessary incentives to the hard work in the form of profits or income. So if I work more efficiently, will I get something more in return? No. Why should I work more? So this leads to inefficiency. So they do not provide any necessary incentives for my hard work. Why should I work hard? So in what form I am expecting some incentives? In the form of more income or more profits. But there is no chance in a socialist economy. That is a demerit in a socialist economy, which is causing for inefficiency and corruption. And fourth point, administered prices are not determined by considering market forces. So in a socialist economy, market forces do not play any role, right? Demand and supply do not have any role to play. Only government or central planning authority will decide the prices. So there is no chance of demand and supply. Administered prices means monitored prices which are fixed by the central monitoring authority. And fifth point, state monopolies will become uncontrollable. So they will put their restrictions. The central monitoring authority cannot come to each and every state and see what is happening. So they'll put some state authorities. So these authorities becomes monopolies and they act as they are the rulers and they are the leading actors in the market. So state monopolies becomes uncontrollable and they lead the economy as they own. And no freedom of choice. So this is called as geo-paradised. Freedom, or if there are restrictions on freedom of choice, it is called as geo-paradise. In the previous point also we have discussed this. So restricts the freedom of individuals. Next, no reward is given to personal efficiency and productivity. So if I am working more effectively, is there any reward? No. So why should people work more and why should they donate that money in the form of tax to the central authority? That will be their general feeling, right? So there will be no reward for whatever efforts that they are putting. So productivity will also not increase because of that demerit in a socialist economy. And eighth point, if you see, extreme form of socialism is not practically possible. We cannot see 100% as 100% socialist economies in the world. We'll have 99% socialist economies. We are not saying that every country which is following socialism is 100% socialist economy. So that is the last point of a socialist economy. And next and the last topic in our second unit is mixed economy. Mixed economy is will be having both features of a socialist and a capitalist economy. So if you observe, the point that I have written will be coexistence of private and public sectors, right? So this is the basic feature, and you can see all the capitalist and socialist features in a mixed economy. So best example for a mixed economy is India. India follows mixed economy, means there will be private people who can make their own business, who can own their own property, and there will be public sectors who will be supporting the people who are not capable, right? So that is a mixed economy. Well, coming to merits of a mixed economy, if you see, freedom of economic choice is there. Consumers can choose what they want because there is private sector who wants cookies, private sector will produce, and people who wants atta, public sector is there to take care of them. So freedom of economic choice is there. Existence of price mechanism means demand and supply will be deciding the price. So how much demand is there, how much supply is there. If you see, generally in our markets, tomatoes, the prices will be sometimes more, sometimes less. How are they deciding those prices? Basing on the supply and basing on the demand. When the supply is more and demand is less, or when the supply is more and demand is more, prices will be more. And when the supply is less what will happen? When the supply is less, prices will increase, right? So when supply is less, prices will increase. When supply is more, prices will decrease. Basing on the demand also, the price mechanism works. Demand and supply equilibrium, that we will discuss in the next chapters. So let just understand that price mechanism means basing on demand and supply, those are market forces, they will determine the price. It is not an administered price. Okay, so next, consumers are benefited through consumer sovereignty and freedom of choice. So whatever they want, that will be considered by the private sector, and they will have that freedom to choose what they want to buy, right? So that is a merit in a mixed economy. Fourth point, if you see, appropriate incentives for innovation and technological progress. This you can see, this is a characteristic of a capitalist economy. There are appropriate incentives. So people who are capable, they can start their businesses. People who are not capable, they can do jobs, and even if they are not able to get that also, government will be there to support them. Means completely they'll not give you jobs, they'll support you by providing some opportunities. They'll support you by giving some opportunities in the market. They'll bring some companies, they'll start companies, so that they'll create employment. These kind of benefits you can see in a mixed economy. Appropriate incentives can be earned by the people who are capable by starting their businesses, by innovation and technological progresses. Whereas fifth point considers the advantage of economic planning. There we have a capitalist economy feature which helps the economy to grow by giving them incentives and by developing them to innovate and by bringing technological progress to the country. Whereas this advantage of economic planning is from socialist economy, if you observe. So this is the advantage of economic planning, that is central monitoring authority, central monitoring unit will plan what to be produced for the people who are not capable, or for the poor people, what they want, or what is the basic requirements of the economy. They will plan, and according to that they will produce. So this is considering the advantage of economic planning, that is a mixed economy will follow a basic needs of the economy. Next, greater economic and social equality and freedom from exploitation. People will not be exploited, resources will not be exploited. So they'll consider equality and economic choice. Greater economic and social equality will be followed. Everybody in the economy are treated equally. Nobody, people who are capable of earning, they will earn, but if from that income what they are getting, a little amount they'll pay it as a tax. That tax will be used by the central monitoring authority to support the low grade people, lower income grade people. So this will help the economy to grow, right? And the last merit of a mixed economy is disadvantages of cutthroat competition are averted. Averted means reversed. So there will be no cutthroat competition in a mixed economy, means it will be eliminated because there is public sector. So if there is high competition in a industry, government or the public sector will start its business in that industry to avoid more competition, so that it will reduce the prices, or it will monitor basing on the requirements of the economy, how much to produce and what quality and quantity they have to produce, so that the other competitors also will move according to the requirements of the society. The competition will be averted by monitoring them. Who is monitoring them? Central monitoring authority. Here there are no complete restrictions, but there will be always an eye on us, on a private sector, so that they will not exploit or they will not overuse their freedom. Okay, so that is a merit of a mixed economy. Coming to the demerits of a mixed economy, Procedural delays and higher regulations. Even if you see, if you want to start a business in India, we have to follow so many rules and regulations. So because of that, what will happen? There will be a delay. So that will cause you to get demotivated. That is a demerit in a mixed economy. That delays and higher regulations, more rules and regulations will be there. You have to follow this. So if you do not follow that, they will cancel your request. So that kind of restrictions will be there in a mixed economy because of the central monitoring authority. Next, higher taxes charged to the private sector. As I told you, in the merit, disadvantage of cutthroat competitions are averted. To avert that, what they will do, they will charge more taxes to the private sector to control them. So that will become a demotivating factor for the private sector. So because they are being charged high taxes, they'll not be interested in producing more and more, right? So that is a disadvantage in a mixed economy. And coming to the third point, dominance of private sector over public sector. Even if you see right now in India, most of the industries are under the private sector control only, and public sector is slowly moving out, right? So in a mixed economy, what is happening? Private sector is dominating the public sector. So these are the demerits of a mixed economy. This is all about your second unit, first chapter. So please concentrate on this topic and just see. If there are any doubts, please feel free to message us on our channel, RT Classes for CA CMA Guru. Thank you.